Okay, so I'm gonna quit with the singing now for the American Redstart. And yeah, let's talk about fall feathered friends. There are so many birds and so much that we could talk about. Sorry for that call in the background. Um, so thank you so much for coming. I want to note what I have decided to call myself, a birder extraordinaire wannabe. So I always want to keep learning about birds. And there's so much to talk about, and there really is so little time in our Friendly Friday program. So I chose three things to really focus on: the birds that are migrating now, resources that could be really helpful to you, and then keys to trying to entice those birds into your garden. Now, we've got a chat function, and Laura is going to be monitoring that for us. So if you have any questions or you want to, share any kind of comments, please use the chat. So, birds. I took all of these pictures in my yard. Well, except for maybe the bright yellow one with the necklace at the bottom. I can't remember if that one was my yard, but I have seen them. So the top left bird is a Cape May. There is a red-shouldered hawk at the top in the middle. The bird to the extreme right is actually a yellow-crowned night heron that does not migrate, but hey, it was a good picture, so I threw it in there. Then the bottom middle bird is a yellow-throated warbler, and then the bottom left bird is a prairie warbler. So there are so many birds that come through our area, both in the spring and in the fall. And what I wanted to do was just go through several different ones that might help you identify and just know that you could look for, because they truly are jewels. Birding is a huge industry. I mean, so much money is spent on birding for travel, for going to different places, staying in hotels, bed and breakfast, eating, and it's such a harmless way to be out in nature and help the economy and enjoy nature at the same time. So here we've got, let me get started on these birds. Here we have a male painted bunting. They literally look like someone had crayons and gave them to a child to color in. The males in most bird species are brighter colored. I don't know what's up with that. And then the females usually are bigger. So here is a male painted bunting, those beautiful colors, and then the female is beautiful in her own right with the yellow front and green back. And then, of course, a ruby-throated hummingbird. We see those in the winter here. Some people may have them out west all during the year, but I only see them during the winter. So I'm not going to really go through a lot of detail about these. It's just meant to give you an idea of what's out there, what might I see. And I'm going to tell you, I have seen almost all of these birds in my yard, and I live in the north part of the county, sort of the edge of Palm Beach Gardens and Jupiter. So black-throated blue, that's a male. The distinguishing point of that bird is that white sort of blotch on its wing. I don't know of another warbler that has a white blotch like that. And the female is a drabber bird, but also has that spot. Then the yellow-throated warbler, there's several different warblers that are called common yellowthroat, yellow warbler. This is a yellow-throated warbler. It's got that bright yellow underneath, and it's on its throat, and black and white, beautiful. And then the black and white warbler, they creep along the barks of trees. When I first started birding and I saw that, it was so beautiful. And I was like, oh my goodness, what is that bird? And when I looked it up and found out its name was black and white warbler, I was a little disappointed because it deserves a fancier name than that. But it is a beautiful bird as well. Then we have a palm warbler, and a way to tell a palm warbler is it has that rust chestnut color on the top of its head. Then the middle picture here, the pine warbler, that bird can be very yellow or not so yellow. And that is a case with many of these birds. In the winter, when they're visiting us, they're not as bright a color. So they can be much, much duller. Prairie warbler on the right-hand side there, that little sort of crescent black shape under its eye is a dead giveaway. Now here's one that I have not had in my yard, the black-throated green warbler. It sits way high in the trees. And one thing you'll learn about birds, different birds like to be in different locations. And we can talk about that in a moment. The middle bird here and the one on the left are both American goldfinch. I've never seen one down here as bright yellow as the picture here in the middle. They tend to look more like the one on the right-hand side. So that's probably a male in the winter or could be a female. Then moving right along, look closely at the worm-eating warbler. I just saw one of these in my garden. The giveaway for that bird are those sort of beige tan head with the black stripes. And I use that picture because it's so camouflaged. And these are little birds, so you really have to look. Then the northern parula has a beautiful song. Its back is sort of olive colored, and then it's got bluish gray wings and that rust and yellow across the breast and throat. And those two little, not a complete eye ring, but a broken eye ring. The next one, the blue-gray warbler, tiny, tiny little bird. They're all over the place right now. They flit around really quickly, so you will probably see them. I wanted to throw in a couple of birds that weren't warblers that migrate as well, although we may see some of them during the year. The blue-headed vireo. A real giveaway for that bird are the spectacles. Can you see how it's got sort of like white around its eyes that join in the middle, almost like glasses? Then the red-eyed vireo is a little bit different type. It's got that striping through the eye, and its eye really is red, but sometimes of the year not so red. So that can be sort of a something that will cause you to, mix them up. Then there's the white-eyed vireo. It has a spectacle too, but just yellow colored. And again, sometimes that eye is not white. American redstarts, they're a male and a female here. They are all over the place right now, and they flare their tail. So you'll see them like real erratic, kind of jumping from one branch to another and really spreading that tail. The hooded warbler. We don't typically see them this bright. I saw a dull version of this bird about 2 days ago in my garden. Also wanted to add another couple of birds that are not warblers, but are moving through right now, the Louisiana water thrush and the northern water thrush. Now, tell you the truth, these are very hard to tell apart, and I'm not sure that I didn't get two northern water thrush here. One is much more streaked than the other, but there's a lot of variation. And then, of course, I couldn't not include a yellow-rumped warbler. And yep, that yellow rump is a dead giveaway, but a lot of other birds have yellow rumps too. But we see that one a lot in larger groupings. Okay, so quick, view of a bunch of birds, and there are many, many more, but you can see all of them in your garden and in a lot of the locations to visit around. So let's talk about resources. I've got just about a 1-minute video I want to share with you. If there are 2 resources that you absolutely have to visit, the Cornell Lab of Ornithology it has everything you need, and that's what this video is about.
What bird is that?
How much do they eat?
Why are they so colorful? What's that bird doing?
Where do migratory birds go?
What do birds tell us about our changing world?
How can I help?
Will they be here when I grow up?
Well, I want to, just to share a couple of screen captures that I took from the Cornell website, and just to again say what a great resource this is. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to go through a lot, but they showed this in the video. It is a live bird migration tracking map. And you can put in your city. It will tell you whether it's going to be a high or low migration day. Actually, it's evenings, because most of these birds are migrating at night. But this is just a fabulous, fabulous resource. And then they also have a library. Look at the number of birds that they have, the photos, the songs, and the videos. So worthwhile just to go visit if you can't get out and do some birding on your own. And while I was, looking things up for this presentation, I saw the October Big Day. So this is a challenge that they do, and hey, I figured there's a winner that's going to get a fabulous set of binoculars. So wanted to share that. And I just want to mention that we will have this video, this presentation on video on our YouTube list, and we'll be sending out information to everyone that registered as well. Okay, so the next area or organization that you totally have to be aware of and visit is Audubon. I mean, after all, they really are the ones that started all of the bird conservation. But what, and I want you to see, I've got the audubon.org link up, address up there. So trying to make sure you know how to get in touch yourself with these different websites. But the thing that I really like about Audubon is that they truly do connect the dots. It's not just about IDing birds or photographing birds, but it's protecting and caring for them. And that means, how are all the wildfires affecting the birds? Even way away from where the fires actually are happening. And then climate change. You know, this is a big issue for migratory birds, for all of us, of course. And then they list events. The great thing about Audubon is that there are international and national organization, but there are also local chapters. And the Audubon Society of the Everglades is so worthwhile being a member. They have field trips and events and talks, and they've done some virtual programming during this time right now, like everybody else. So please check out Audubon Everglades. And moving right along, more resources. Well, you know, there are tons of websites, there are tons of books, and I just wanted to focus on apps really for this, other than these two main websites, because there's so much out there. I used to be a big book carrier and they weigh a ton, but now you can put everything just in your smartphone. So the Audubon Bird Guide tells, you know, it helps you ID, it gives you like, where are they? It lets you know, who else has been seeing them. Great, great guide. And it's free. Now, eBird is an excellent listing and tracker, and that is part of the Cornell lab. So if you want to keep a life list, this is a great app to be able to do that. I'm not really that great on keeping it myself. I want to, but then I don't always do it. So I'm going to try and rededicate myself to putting my list together. Now, Merlin is another app that you can get from Cornell Lab. It's so easy. If you look at this first screen, it asks you what size is the bird, so you can put it in there. And then what are the main colors? And then where did you see it? If you do that, and it also knows your location, it will pop up different birds that may be the bird that you saw. And you also, if you could get it, could snap a photo, and it can be ID'd by that. I mean, how cool is all of this? Birdseye is an app that I use a lot when I am traveling, or if I want to see what birds are people seeing in parks around or locations around where I could visit. It uses those life lists and those ID lists to tell you who is seeing what where. Birdseye, great, great app. I use it all the time. This is another picture ID. I don't have this one. I might try it, but it's just difficult sometimes to get those pictures. But hey, maybe it would work for you. And then this is a new one for me, quite honestly, Bird's Eye Hotspot. I'm going to try it. I had not noticed it until I started putting this program together. Then there are many other birding apps that I just am not going to have a lot of time to go into, but I do want to point out iBird Pro. This tells you just about everything you need to know and can find almost any bird on here for North America. I use that extensively. So before we run out of time, I want to try and talk about how can you bring birds into your yard. These are the 5 important things that you need to think about if you want to have a garden for wildlife. And this is some of the pictures in my garden. So first and foremost, get rid of the lawn. I have just enough lawn to let my puppies run around in and to, you know, walk around myself to be able to look at birds and butterflies and the different flowers. So you're spending a lot of energy, money, time trying to keep that lawn. You don't need it. You really don't need it. And it's not helping the wildlife. So let's limit lawn. And trees. Oh my goodness, of course, trees are so important. Well, the ones that I selected here on the left is a large, in the middle is a large oak tree that has acorns that, you know, the birds just love. It's open enough so that you can see the birds hopping from one spot to another. The sable palm is its cover, its protection. I have screech owls that live in that sable palm. And then you also have, like the 2 trees on the end, they provide cover, and there may be insects, flowers that really draw the birds in. And of course, shrubs are important. The hummingbirds love the red flowers, tubular flowers like the firebush, the coffee that's on the top right-hand side, that has small little flowers that butterflies love, but also if you let it go to seed, the birds love it. The bottom left-hand side is beautyberry, Calocarpa. Birds love that purple berry. And then there are all kinds of other plants that you can put in your yard. A real key is them being native. You really want to focus on native plants because that's where the food is going to be for our birds and our butterflies and other wildlife. Now, I do mix it up in my yard, but I have predominantly native plants. The other thing to consider when you are planning your garden is layering. You know, a minute ago, I said different birds like to be in different locations. Well, some birds stay on the ground almost all the time. Those water thrushes, ovenbirds, brown thrashers, they like to be low to the ground. Other birds, like that painted bunting, they like a lot of cover. They typically stay in a more medium shrub area. And then birds like the black-throated black-throated green that I mentioned, they like to be at the very tops of trees. So if you have those different layers, it's going to also help you have more birds in your yard. Now, food and water is really important. I talked about some food berries that are really attractors could be wild grasses. And I do have a feeder. I have a couple of feeders in my yard. I know a lot of people, it's like, should I have a feeder? Should I not have a feeder? Well, first you want to have the plants. That is the mainstay for all of the birds. You want to have the food that are in the native plants. I do supplement with bird feeders, and I use high quality seed. I keep my bird feeder clean, and I make sure that there's fresh water. So it's really up to you, and you have to decide whether you want to have seeds to supplement or not. And then what we cannot forget is our sustainable practices. We do not want to have poisons in our garden. I don't use any kind of insecticides other than something like neem oil or insecticidal soap. I'm very careful about what I use because I don't want to kill the pollinators that are going to help us have all of those flowers turn into seeds for the birds. I don't want to do anything to harm any of the bees that, you know, that are maybe could be food as well as pollinators. And then of course, all the other insects. A lot of warblers are omnivores. They'll eat seed and insects. So you want to make sure you have plenty of insects in your garden. And that means pesticide-free zone. Well, trying to sort of wind down here. I know there are so many other things we could talk about, and I want to make sure we've got a few minutes for questions. But I do want to mention some programs that we have coming up, and you can go to our website to be able to get information. I'm hoping that maybe Laura is putting our website in the chat box, since I did not put it on the screen here. But we have a lot of giveaways. We have a lot of educational programs meant to help you, certainly with birding, but also just climate change and thinking about and caring for our natural world. So with that, I'm gonna stop sharing and see if we have any questions that might be in the chat. Oh my goodness, I see there are a few. Laura, can you pick out a few for me and see if I can, now it's a test. I can see whether I can answer.
Okay, we have a couple of questions here. In the beginning of presentation, Blue Kaufman asked, have all those birds already been spotted in West Palm Beach? And does West Palm Beach track the migration?
So all of the birds here that I talked about, I've seen almost every one in my yard, and I have definitely seen every one in West Palm Beach. They come and go. Right now is a big fall migration time, and then again in the spring. There's some that stay around through the winter, like my painted buntings, the hummingbirds, blue-gray gnatcatchers, the vireos. Those are some that stay around. Some are just passing through right now, going to South America or Central America. And as far as do we track them, Grassy Waters is a great place to go see birds, and they do have a bird ID where you can put in your bird list, so there is some tracking.
Okay, we have some more questions. Question is, where is the good place to get high quality seed in this area? Okay.
You know what? I buy it online. It's, you tell me if anyone knows, put it in the chat box. You know, we don't have any place, at least close to West Palm Beach that I'm aware of, that is like a wild bird store or an Audubon store. So I basically buy online. And you want, one thing I'm going to mention, when you see seed, you see these tiny little red millet, and then there's white millet. Almost nothing eats the red millet. So don't get stuff that has a lot of red millet. That's just filler, and it'll just get kicked out.
Okay, we have another question come up. Nathan is curious if certain migrating birds have shifted to different areas due to climate change.
Well, I'm sure that they have. I'm not an expert. I told you I'm a birder extraordinaire wannabe. But what we are seeing is when the flowers, because of maybe heat, cold, or drought, or wet changes, plants are starting to react differently. So they may be developing seeds sooner than the birds might be used to migrating. So they could be coming through earlier and maybe, or later, and maybe the food that is normally there is not there. And that goes for insects too, especially further up north. There are some insects that don't come out until, certain temperatures, or maybe they're not there yet and the birds are coming through. So it's something to watch, and Audubon and the Cornell lab has information on that. They probably have some great articles, so I would encourage you to check that out.
Okay, the next question is from Jackson, 5 years old. He's asking what other birds are omnivores.
Ooh, well, there are really a lot of birds will eat seed and bugs. And I didn't even talk about hawks. We have a lot of hawks that come and stay with us in the winter. Now they're eating like little lizards and critters, maybe mice or other birds even, but they will also eat snails or something like that. Our snail kite only eats apple snails. So the food and the bird developed really together. And that's why climate change is so important. Okay,
and Stacy wants to know what's your favorite fall feather friend is.
Oh, I'm just going to have to say the painted buntings. I've been in my home for a little over 20 years. And when we moved here, all grass, couple of small trees. And now you can see like the picture behind me, that's part of my backyard. I've really spent a lot of time building up that garden for wildlife, and the painted buntings started coming. We probably have like 10 or 12 that come back every year now, and they're just so beautiful. But I love them all. Really love them all. Can't hear you, Lara.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
That was a mute. We have a question from Jamie asking, what is the good place in Palm Beach County for birding?
Oh, so many good places. And, I should have added those. It really depends on what part of the county you are in. I go to Frenchman's Forest a lot. MacArthur has a great birding trail. Green Cay is an excellent place to spot birds. Of course, I already mentioned Grassy Waters. Almost Riverbend Park. I mean, the list really goes on and on. If you get that birding app, Birdseye, it will tell you where the hot spots are, because sometimes some place will have more birds or different birds than others. So when we started out the program today, I was playing on my phone a meadowlark song. And I don't see meadowlarks where I live, but I go out west into the fields, not really that far west, and just drive through some of the cow fields in the evening, and the meadowlarks are up there sitting on the fence post or on a shrub in the middle of the grass, singing their hearts out. So really, you can find birds anywhere that you go. And I just want to mention binoculars. There, I think you can see them. I never go anywhere without them, honestly. And I didn't talk about types of binoculars today because there are so many. The main thing you want is lightweight, easy to spot, and you just have to get used to them. But everywhere right now is a good birding place. In the summer, it's a little more difficult because we don't have those migrants. In the summer, I usually go to wetlands or the seashore.
Okay, and we're a little over time, so I guess it's going to be the last question. And anybody have anything, please put in the chat right now. And I have a question, says, I'm new to birding, and so where do I begin? Where do I start? Any?
The first place that I would say is to join the local Audubon chapter. They have just people that are fabulous birders. They can ID birds just by the sound alone, by the song. There are great beginning birder books, so I'd encourage you to go by the Mandel Library in downtown West Palm Beach and get a birding book. And then, of course, there's so much on the web. There is a lot of video that helps you ID. So those two websites, Audubon and the Cornell Lab, those are places to go, but there's nothing like, being there with someone. So as soon as we're out of this pandemic where we're having to stay so remote, I would suggest going to the Everglades Audubon meetings and making some new friends, and they'll help you out. Well, guys, I know we're over time, and I just want to say thank you so much for being interested, for thinking about, the natural world and spending some time with us. Don't forget to go to our sustainability website. That is sustainability at WPB.org. And we have tons of other programs. I'm always around if you have any birding questions. I love talking about birds. So please keep joining us. We've got Friday lunch programs every Friday at this time, and a lot of other virtual programs too. So again, many thanks. Bye.